Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Betting Pros podcast brought to you by BetMGM. I'm your host, Dan Harris. Find me on Twitter at DanHarris80. It is entering week 14. It is time to take an early look at the NFL lines for this weekend. With me to do that is Joe Pisapia from Betting Pros right here. Find him on Twitter at Joe Pisapia 17? Is that right? I've only done 17,000 podcasts with you. I should know your Twitter handle. But anyway, welcome, Joe. How are you riding insanely high after that grotesque Patriots win last night?
It was a game of chess last night, Danny boy. It was a game of chess in the wind. And I don't know about you, but when I play chess in the wind, I always like to have Bill Belichick with me, right next to me. And 2 out of 3 ain't bad is that old Meatloaf song. And that was pretty much Mac Jones' stat line last night. 2 out of 3 passes. And that was good enough. Some very good defense at the end. Next man up there after Adrian Phillips comes off the field. And what a great play by a backup defensive back there to kind of save the game at the end. So certainly not a high-scoring affair, but if you love old-timey defense football, then you enjoyed it. And if you're a Patriots fan like me, you definitely enjoyed it.
I apparently engaged in hyperbole too much because when my wife asked, how's the game? I was like, it was the most amazing game I'd ever seen. Like, not in a great way, but just in a, you don't see a quarterback attempt 3 passes. And she basically says I say that like 1 out of every 3 or 4 games. So I need to tone it down because that really was something where you're not going to see that again, absent.
There will be more
craziness.
Passes in the 3rd and 4th grade flag football teams that I coach in January. When that league starts up, the 3rd and 4th graders, there will be more passing than there was in this game.
Absolutely nuts. But enjoyable game to watch nonetheless. All right, let's get into it, Joe. We got a lot of lines to talk about, a lot of good stuff coming in. But first, let me give you the latest offer from BetMGM. New customers with the code JUICE100 can bet $10 and win $200 if your team that you bet on scores a touchdown. That's it. $10, win $200 in free bets if the team you bet on scores a touchdown. That is available in New Jersey, Colorado, Indiana, West Virginia, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Virginia, Iowa, Washington, D.C., Arizona, and Wyoming. Let's go to Thursday game, Joe. Let's start it there. The Steelers are visiting the Vikings. The Vikings are laying 3 points here, and the total is 44.5. Steelers off the big win here over the Ravens, which you and I were just talking about as investors in Lamar Jackson for our MVP. And the Vikings, they give the Lions their first win. They lose Adam Thielen, so they are favored, though, here. And it is, I will say, again, the consensus line is 3, Joe, but it is 3.5 in a lot of books here. So how are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, this is the bare minimum, right? Whenever you have a home team you don't believe in, you just kind of throw the 3 on them. That's what Vegas does, typically. And I got to be honest with you. I mean, this is the journey of the Vikings season, where they're in every game. Every game is close. Every game they have a lead. The games they lose, they blow the lead. And in this one, it would not shock me whatsoever to get back to Minnesota here in this one and have them get a W against the Steelers, who have not played great football, who seem very sluggish, who should not have won, in my opinion, against the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens got a little too big for their britches in that last game, so I actually like the Minnesota side of this game to win. And I think that they still got plenty of weapons here. Justin Jefferson plays out of his mind. They've still got Osborne. They still got Conklin. They still got Madison. All are very useful. It's whether or not that defense can show up enough here. And really, at this stage, how much is left in the tank for the running game of the Pittsburgh Steelers? So, in my opinion, I actually would lean towards Minnesota in this one in the -3 because I feel like this is exactly what it is to bet Minnesota. Every time you think it's done, they just lost to the Lions. Oh, well, I can't bet them anymore, or I'm going to go against them. No, it's the opposite. So just continue with that trend because that's who they've been all season long, Dan. But what do you think about them, and what do you think about this 44.5?
I like the over a little bit, Joe. I do think that the Steelers, when they went to a little bit of the no huddle in the second half, they were able to move the ball a little more effectively, just sort of get it out quickly. Dante Johnson obviously had a big game. So I do think that there are going to be points in this game. The Steelers defense has shown a lot of cracks. They've been dealing with injuries. So I think both teams can put up points here. I don't mind the over. I don't really have a great feel for the spread as I look at this. This, I guess, feels about right, but you're correct. The Vikings are always going to play a very close game here, and the Steelers coming off that win, you feel like there could easily be a letdown spot right here. And the Vikings, every time you basically want to be out on the Vikings, that's when they come through, right? So I think for me, Joe, it's a stay away here on the side, just, 3 points. But on the total, I like the over. I am wondering, though, Joe, if it's 3.5, as it is at our sponsor, BetMGM, FanDuel, it's 3, but at 3.5, does that change how you feel about it one way or another?
It does. With the half, I think with the hook,
hook,
then you start to look a little bit on Pittsburgh to cover there because it probably will be a little bit, it's going to be in that range at least.
Yep.
But look, at this point in time, on the short week 2, whenever you have to travel, that's always hard. It's, a very emotional game. And what we've learned, too, is when these teams have these big emotional rivalry games in their division, they come out flat the next week. And to come out flat a couple days later is not going to be a surprise. Look at Cincinnati last week. That's the game that you and I talked about. They're going to come out flat. They came out flat, and they got their doors blown off by the Chargers, basically. So I see that same kind of thing happening here to Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh just ekes out wins anyway. And with the Minnesota Vikings, it's just this is the trend of this team this year until further notice, and this is the perfect time to get in on it because I think everybody will be pounding the Steelers side of this game.
Yeah, I do expect that. I expect more people to come in on the Steelers, which is why I'm a little surprised. Again, this is one of those where it looks like the books are completely fine with you taking the Steelers in this one. And that does make me a little nervous. So, Joe, have you looked? I know what we talk about when we do this show together because it's probably the third time we've done it, which is we come in fresh. Like, we don't look at the lines whatsoever before we start. Have you looked at any of the lines before we start this?
Not a single line, my friend.
I'm going to ask you something. Okay. There's no wrong answer here. What do you expect with the Ravens coming off that loss and obviously now, losing Marlon Humphreys for the season? Ravens visiting the Browns. What would you expect the spread to be in that game?
Because
no wrong answer.
It's in Cleveland. I would expect Cleveland to be favored by not by the full 3. That's what I would think. So it's probably
Very
2.5 or 2, right?
It is 2.5. Yeah.
Okay.
It is 2.5. The total is a low 42.5. So again, the Ravens here, they just look out of sort. They don't look. They don't have everything working. They're still 8-4. Obviously, they're leading the division. The Browns, Baker looks like his body is holding on by a thread at this point. They are coming off the bye, so maybe a little healthier. What do you think, Joe? Under the 3, you had it right. It's 2 at DraftKings where I bet, but it's pretty much 2.5 everywhere else, and a low total of 42.5.
Well, now that I'm going to look at it right here, and I see the money line is plus 115 on Baltimore, I think that is your best bet right there. And I see 83% of the bets have already come on that side of that. So that tells you a lot right there. And I don't think that the Baltimore Ravens anticipated how much they were going to miss Matthew Judon in that pass rush. And I think that's the one thing that you're not seeing. This team's not getting to the quarterback. And that's a bad combination because when you lose Marlon Humphrey, right, who plays so well in the secondary, then you lose a good corner, and then at the same time, you're not getting to the cornerback. That's a bad situation. Now, the good news is Cleveland can't throw the ball. So that is the saving grace here in this particular game, which is why I prefer just an outright win for Baltimore here. Like, forget the spreads, forget everything, take the plus 115 on the money line. That's going to be their best bet here, I think, of any of these, because Baltimore should have won that game. Baltimore is I still think, a better team than the Cleveland Browns. Now, we'll see if Cleveland Browns can get Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in that duo working again, and if they can, this game's going to be very tight. But these tight in-division games are typically ones I stay away from. I would rather just pick a side rather than mess around with anything else, and I think picking the side of the Baltimore Ravens is what I would do because they have that one difference-maker guy in Lamar Jackson who could just take over a game, and I think that ends up becoming the difference in this one. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I like the Ravens. I do. I think that the loss of Humphrey is big, but not as much in this game, right, as you mentioned, because they don't really, the passing game is not really, you don't rely on the dominant wide receiver or anything like that. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run it a ton. And they are off the bye, and the Ravens are probably going to be a little tired, but they're also going to be pissed. They're going to be pissed off at losing that game. And I am going to take the 2.5, by the way. I mean, the money line is fine. But again, you see right now, a lot of these games, I was watching it last night, and I was on the Bills laying 2.5 yesterday. And I remember thinking that, oh man, if Bass hits that first field goal, the one that went up and then just sort of, leaked to the right, that it was like, this is going to be a 2-point game. Because half the, so many of these games right now, especially with the way the Ravens go for 2, like the 2.5, it's more meaningful to me than it used to be, where it's just like, all right, you're under a field goal, like, whatever. But like a lot of games at this point, I feel like fall within the 2 or something like that, or even the 1. So I'll probably be a coward and take the 2.5 right now. But I do think that the Ravens win outright. So I don't have any problem with necessarily the money line bet. What do you think about the total, Joe? It's 42.5. That's low, but neither one of these teams is exactly piling up the points. They're going to run a ton.
Yeah, look, this was a really tough one to gauge because last time the total was in this game was, very underwhelming. And then last year it was out of this world, right? They hit like 65, I think, last year in that giant, was it the Sunday night or Monday night game, whatever it was last year that they played together. So I'm out on the total because there's so many outcomes between these offenses. You just don't know what you're going to see if these guys start breaking off big plays like Chubb and Hunt or Lamar. That changes the dynamic quite a bit. Or look, if anything, I would lean towards the under because of what Baker Mayfield's been unable to do in the passing game and his health. And we'll see what happens when they come out of the bye, if that rest time has any help whatsoever to him. But I don't know, at this point in time, to me, like I said, I think the best money you're getting is that plus money on the money line with the Ravens. So I wouldn't even screw around with anything else.
Game only a mother could love. The Falcons visiting the Panthers. The Panthers are laying 3 and the total at 43.5. Sounds like Cam is still going to be the starter, which does make sense. I mean, putting aside that terrible game. Falcons, they fight. I'll give that to the Falcons there. They fight. Panthers off a bye. Both teams sort of still in the playoff hunt at 5 and 7. So this is kind of a make or break game for both of them. Again, Panthers at home, off the bye, laying 3, small total, 43.5.
Yeah, it's a very small total. And I really like the Carolina defense. I still do. And it's just a matter of how much offense you're going to get from Cam Newton. So we had 2 plays in one game, then he had a good game, and then he had a wretched game. So does he have more time with the playbook, more time to practice, more time to figure things out? Theoretically, yes, and you have a lesser opponent here in the Falcons, in my opinion. So I think the Carolina defense probably gets a touchdown or at least puts them in position for a touchdown this game, and I think that, to me, is the big difference maker. So the 3 on the side of the Carolina Panthers is where I would lean in this game. The 43.5 seems about right to me, though. That's why I don't care for the over-under in this game. So I would just take Carolina with the 3 because I do think that they can probably, end up with something looking like a 27-20 kind of game in this one. And, that would go over. But once again, we could also see Atlanta score, 13 in this game. And all of a sudden, it's not nearly as exciting of an over.
Yeah, I do lean a little bit towards the under just because, I mean, basically, why would, the word is that Brady was fired because he didn't run the ball enough. And, I feel like you've got Cam and you've got Hubbard, and I just think they're going to run the ball nonstop. They're not going to want to put this in Cam's hands here to try to make something happen. That's going to lean itself towards the under a little bit as the clock continues to wind, and I don't really have faith that the Falcons are going to be able to put up a ton of points here against a rested and angry Panthers defense. So I lean the under. I'm not going to back either side on this one. It's just to stay away in a divisional game with Cam coming off, a game that made, Mac Jones look like, the greatest passer in the world. So I'm staying away from that Cam Newton.
What did you think of the Joe Brady firing, by the way? Curious.
Where did I what?
What do you think about the Joe Brady situation there, too?
I don't know, man.
That was very puzzling to me.
It was, yeah. I was surprised. You got to blame somebody, I think, right? The Panthers are all in on this year. That's a thing. When they traded for Gilmore and they make signings every single time they've got anything, they've been all in. And the bottom line is I don't really know what you can expect to do when your greatest offensive asset in Christian McCaffrey misses the entire game, and you have a poo-poo platter of revolving quarterbacks. Sam Darnold played very well in the first few games, and I think that tricked them into thinking that Sam Darnold was the answer, and I think you and I you live in Jersey, I'm a Jets fan, I think we probably understood that he wasn't. So I think it seems a little strange to me to fire him midseason, but they really do seem like a team that had playoff aspirations, which they did, of course. And I have a sprinkle on them to make the playoffs. And they got to blame somebody, man. So that's it.
He's going to have a college coaching job in about 2 seconds.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
So. Absolutely. Jaguars visiting the Titans. The Titans are laying 9.5, total 44.
Let's see. Let's bring this one up. The Titans, eh? Well, this is a game. If you're the Titans, you kind of win this and you control your destiny no matter how many injuries you've had. 9.5 seems like a big number for an offense that's this gross at this point in time. I know they're talking about getting Julio Jones back. I just look, the Titans should win this game. I'm sure the Titans will win this game. 9.5 just seems like a really big number for this offense right now. So I would actually lean to the Jacksonville side of this than take the points with the 9.5 just because. And it's not because I have any confidence in Jacksonville whatsoever, but it just feels as though the Tennessee Titans offense right now is not equipped for that kind of a spread. That's my problem here.
It's actually 8.5 for you, Joe, at FanDuel. It's 9.5 everywhere else. So FanDuel's sort of drawn a line in the sand. Yeah, 9.5. I agree. I like the Jaguars as well, it's the first time, Joe, that I think I've said I'm willing to back the Jaguars this right now. And again, yeah, Julio's been designated to return from injured reserve. That doesn't mean he's going to play this weekend, right, but it does mean that he has 21 days, and it's a good sign for his availability. And yeah, this is a game. The Titans need to win this game. There's no doubt about it at this point. We were joking about the Colts and what they were to win the division, right? At this point, their odds, what was it, Joe? 70-1?
Yeah, it was 70-1 for the Colts. Now, look, if Jacksonville somehow pulls off a huge upset here against Tennessee, things become very dicey very quickly. It's fascinating that 80% of the money is on the Tennessee side of this game early on. That is something... Why?
I'm sure the Sharps haven't hit it yet, right?
No, they haven't. But I'm saying that it's the lazy of the general public just looking and saying Titans Jaguars. And I think that's exactly why you take this 9.5 when you got it.
It's going to be a pros Joe's game, man. It really is, right? I think people are going to be like the Titans. That they're coming off the bye, they're going to get things right, and they are extremely well coached. And the Jaguars are a dumpster fire. But I lean the under as well, Joe, because I do think that the Titans are going to do in this game is they're not going to take chances. They're going to relax. There's going to be a lot of Deonta Foreman. There's going to be a lot of Dontrell Hilliard, maybe some Julio Jones, but they're going to take their spots because again, without Julio Jones, even with him, man, he's been battling injury. Again, what are you looking at other than that? Nick Westbrook-Akina, right? That's your guy. It's just
2013 gets this done for us.
Yeah, I lean the under here at 44. And again, unders are disgusting, but I'm willing to be
especially unders on 44s.
Correct. It's really gross. Saints visiting the Jets. The Saints are laying just a dead number here at 5.5. A lot of low totals this week, Joe. 43.5 here for this one. So what do you think?
There's a lot of low totals last week too, and I think it's also indicative of the quarterback play you're getting too. You're getting a lot of backup quarterbacks, secondary quarterbacks. Yeah. So when that starts to happen, and you're also getting that point in the year too where it's going to change in the next few weeks when defenses start checking out, and all of a sudden these totals are going to get obliterated because teams are going to just say, "Oh, what time's my plane reservation? Oh, yes, I'm out of here in a week or two."
It's also cold. It's something where I think teams get a little more conservative and they run the ball a little more smash.
Yeah, but this is going to flip in 2 weeks considerably. So when you're looking at these low numbers now, when you get to week 17 and 18, look for overs, even on games you don't think it's going to be an over, because like I said, defenses just kind of start to fold up the tents, and nobody wants to get hit for no reason and get hurt when they've got contracts coming up and things of that nature. New Orleans should win this one in a walk, and defensively certainly they match up. It's funny because the Jets for some reason feel more competitive when Zach Wilson's not playing quarterback for me, but I got to give him credit. He did have a win a couple weeks ago. Was not a good game against the Eagles this past week.
Over the Texans, Joe. Let's
I know. Still, you got a W. Yeah, you beat the Titans. You beat the Texans.
I also, I'm not saying anything bad about Zach Wilson. He has not played well, certainly in the second part of the season, but I want to make it clear, I'm not drawing any conclusions on him long-term yet. They need a better team around them, but yeah, it's really hard to have any confidence in him, Joe, against a semblance of a decent defense.
Well, I just think the New Orleans roster right now overmatches them, and New Orleans has a lot of problems, granted, but the biggest problem they have is in the coverage, and that's something that the Jets are not a prolific passing team. So to me, it's that 5.5 is pretty safe with New Orleans. I'm actually surprised only 56% of the money early on has gone to the New Orleans side of this game at the 5.5. That is actually a little surprising to me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's probably just a game I want to stay away from. I could see the Saints are really not playing like a very good football team here, Joe. They're, and Hill obviously is the quarterback. He can run. They should just run him, in the Wildcat every play. That's all. Unless Kamara comes back here, which again we have question marks about. But they should just run him every play, and they could probably put up a touchdown on 75% of their drives just doing that without throwing the ball at all, a little Mac Jones style. But it's really as sort of mediocre as the Saints have been of late. It's really difficult to see them off the mini bye here coming on Thursday, needing a win again. 5-7, it puts you in contention for that 7th playoff spot right now. We were just talking about it with the Falcons and the Panthers. They need this win. They're going to come out. They're going to play angry. They're going to play hard. It's tough to see the Jets keeping it close. At the same time, just this dead number. Matt Peralta always says, when it's 5.5, 4.5, 5.5, books are just kind of throwing up their hands, being like, well, don't really know what we're doing right now. So I'll probably stay away from it entirely. This next one, though, Joe, I find myself intrigued by as I just took a look at it as I looked ahead to our next game. The Raiders are visiting the Chiefs. The Chiefs have won, 5 in a row, I think? 9.5 they are laying to the Raiders. The total is pretty high, 48.5. What's your gut reaction to this one, Joe? Is that about right to you, 9.5?
You know what? It's the 9.5 is correct for the Chiefs of yesteryear. For the Chiefs of this year, it's a little puzzling, but it feels like something that they could handle. My initial gut reaction is the under, though, in the 48.5, because they just haven't looked great. And the hard part is because now we're going to go back and look a couple weeks ago and how Patrick Mahomes absolutely dismantled this team, right? Remember, he threw for 400 yards against them a few weeks ago. So I think that's why you're seeing this 9.5, and that's why you're seeing all of this confidence in Patrick Mahomes all of a sudden after. And it's not even Patrick Mahomes. It's really the offense as a unit altogether. And he says it in the press conference, too. You saw him this past week. It's like, yeah, we won, but we're still, missing opportunities, and they are.
Yes.
And the offensive line still has not really gelled together yet, and it's week 14. So if it hasn't gelled yet, I don't know what we're waiting for at this point. This was the high point in their season, though, playing the Raiders. It's can you do it twice? And honestly, the way that the way the Kansas City defense has played this year, I think the safest thing to do is just bet the under here in the 48.5, because there's two things going in your favor. Number one is the Las Vegas offense, right? Darren Waller's injured. You just lost Kenny and Drake. They're kind of falling apart here at the end, I think, the Raiders.
Yeah.
They're kind of like pasted together with glue and all kinds of things, and they're just like glue sticks, not even real Elmer's glue, like glue sticks. You just peel them right apart. And then the other thing is the Kansas City defense, which over the last month or so has played significantly better. You put those two things together, and I think you get the under in this game in the 48.5. That's what I would go to, and I would not mess around with the 9 at all.
I'm going to die here while I'm coughing. Joe, I think I like both the under and the Raiders. It's scary.
Okay.
I agree. The Chiefs are content, as they should be right now, because their defense has played so much better of late. They are content to rely on their defense, which, again, I think we just talked about. That leads us towards the under, both of us. But their offense right now, Joe, as much as they did that against the Raiders, like right now they just do not look... They almost don't look interested necessarily in even putting up these giant points, right? They look interested in avoiding taking these too many chances and just playing conservatively and not pushing it. And, Mahomes also still doesn't look like Mahomes, like that much, at least with the offense. Like he's dancing around, and then he's just firing it in there on sort of these short throws. I think the Raiders are able to keep this close enough, and I think this is a game, you come off a Raiders, a poor effort here in this last game. I think they keep it close enough here. I'd love it if it got to 10, of course, but at FoxBet it's 9, at PointsBet it's 9, so probably closer to there than it would be to 10. I think you'd see a lot of sharps hammer it if it got to there. But I still like them at 9.5, but I do like the under as well at 48.5. The Chiefs are content to rely on their defense, and their defense is playing very well right now. So this strikes me as a not close, Joe, but closer than people expect, lower scoring game. So I think we're on the same side on the total. Let's go to the Cowboys visiting the football team. The Cowboys on the road are laying 4. The total here is 48.5. Washington is they're on a roll here, Joe. They're relying on that run game here with Gibson. They have no problem giving him the ball. They've got the defense, despite the loss of Chase Young, playing pretty well overall, well coached. Cowboys here are, a little hit or miss, but they come off the win against the Saints. What do you think?
I think this number should be 6 on the side of the Dallas Cowboys. So I think the line is wrong here, personally. And whenever I think the line is wrong, then I want to jump on it right away. Right? So I actually think the Cowboys with the 4 is great. Because, yes, what you're seeing is a Washington team that is very competitive and they play hard, but I just think that they're going to be outmatched here. I think if you look at some of these games that Washington's played of late, some of the competition, they always play the Tampa Bay Bucks tough. I don't know why. They just do. Some weird teams just have better teams' numbers. It's just a fact of life sometimes. I can't tell you how many frustrating times I used to watch amazing Patriot teams go into Miami and get their rear ended handed into them for no reason. And we all look at each other like, what just happened? Why are we losing in Miami? I don't understand.
Right.
Tom Brady doesn't like the Heat. Apparently it's fine because now he plays in Tampa and he wins Super Bowls there. But to me, this Dallas offense, especially with healthy CD Lamb, you can really, air it out here. And they've had some injuries to this defense in Washington. So Washington's done an outstanding job. Yep. They're a well-coached team. They have great effort. Antonio Gibson, you're right, has looked good, but to me, it's the Cowboys and it's the over in this one. And I think this is actually going to be a very fun fantasy game to be a part of. But the 48.5, I like the over, and the 4 I like right now because I think the number should be 5.5 or 6 for the Dallas Cowboys. I think they are, especially with a little bit extra time to rest, I think they are favorites in this game. And I know it's on the road, and that's probably why you're getting the 4, but I just feel like the line's wrong, Dan.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't love it. Either side of the spread. I'm not running to take Washington whatsoever. I just don't have a good bead right now on the Cowboys. They look a little disjointed. But what you should have really for the first time, Joe, I think, is everybody kind of healthy for the Cowboys on their offense, right? Like at least in terms of the skill players. Because Amari Cooper, we knew he'd be limited last week, right? We knew that he wouldn't be getting the normal snap count. Zeke at times running looked like me running, right? Like just sort of like trying to not hurt himself. But he did loosen up a little bit as the game went on. And again, Pollard looks good. So they should have all their offensive weapons. I could see that. One of the reasons why I don't love the over is because Washington is so run heavy and so conservative. I mean, Washington is able to put together these long drives because every single time they gain a first down, they're gaining 13 yards, right? So it's like one of these things where they take 3 plays to gain 13 yards, 3 more plays to gain 14 yards. Before you know it, they have a 10-minute drive going on where they settle for a field goal. So I don't lean the over. If anything, I lean the under, but it's probably more of a stay away. But a divisional game, man, I don't know. I don't want to bet against Washington right now. So just stay away from me.
There's one more piece to keep in mind, too, is
it.
Landon Collins being out. Because Landon Collins is playing very well, and he was very versatile. He's a guy that plays safety. He can play linebacker. Like he's a guy that you could get a lot out of. I think this is the game where that gets exposed. Because I don't think they've hit... since that injury, I don't think they've had somebody on their schedule where they look at it and go, okay, really got to, you got to worry about Dallas. Throw the football on you big time. So I think that's where kind of the rubber meets the road here in this one. And I think that's where, the combination of Chase Young in the pass rush and the combination of Landon Collins being out too, I think that's a bad combination for this particular matchup.
Seahawks visiting the Texans. The Seahawks are laying 7.5 with a total of 42.5. We've got no Tyrod Taylor. It doesn't really matter right now. He's going to be out for this game, so you got Davis Mills. The Seahawks riding high after their big win over the 49ers, saved, quote-unquote, their season, but laying more than a touchdown here. What do you think?
I think Tyrod Taylor's Charlie Brown. I feel so terrible for Tyrod Taylor. Like, nothing ever works out for this guy. Good grief. Good grief, Mr. Taylor. I just want something.
Yeah.
This one scares the hell out of me because theoretically, Seattle should go in there and just blow their doors off. But I have zero confidence in Seattle right now. So this game feels kind of like a stay away, if anything, to me. Maybe I go to the under on the 42 because the ineptitude of the Houston offense, that's probably the safest thing here rather than to screw around it all with the 7.5 because who knows what happens in garbage time in some of these games or if Seattle can even hold the lead. I don't know. All I know is the 42.5, even though it's a very low number, feels like the safest investment here, but this is not a game that I feel good about investing because Seattle has given me very little confidence despite a big win last week. That's great. There's still a lot of issues with this team, and once again, big in-division game, big emotional win. Then you go on the road against Houston. Do you come out flat? And if you do, that certainly helps with this under.
I think if I'm going to have a plan this game, I'll tease the Seahawks down.
That's fair.
1. So, at DraftKings it's 1. It's 7, so I could tease them to 1. But at 1.5, maybe, that's it. Other than that, no. I don't want to force myself to watch this game. I don't want to have to be relying on the Seahawks to cover more than the 7-point spread. Even though, gun to my head, Joe, I'd probably take them at 7.5 just because I think the more plausible... The Texans are so bad. They're so... bad, and they look disinterested right now, which understandable completely, but it's a game that I think the Seahawks could, as Wilson gets a little healthier, a little more accurate, I could see them trying to use this as a jumping off point for DK Metcalf, trying to throw a little bit, get their passing game right in a game they should win handily. So probably stay away from me. If anything, I'll tease the Seahawks down. Lions visiting the Broncos, fresh off the giant win for the Lions. The total is 42. They are getting 8 points here in Denver from the Broncos. The Broncos are, again, they look pretty terrible against the Chiefs. They lost that game handily. They need to bounce back here. Letdown spot for the Lions, Joe, after the big win, or what?
Well, the Lions have been competitive in a lot of games.
They have been.
They play hard. The problem with the Lions is they don't have talent. So they don't match up well, and then they always end up falling short, and the quarterback play doesn't help them, and they don't have weapons, and DeAndre Swift's injury doesn't help. If you're gonna laugh at this, but if Melvin Gordon's out for this game too, I like the Denver side because I think Javonte Williams looks that good in this backfield, and they have so much trouble there with the run that I think Javonte's can just run amok on them. If Gordon is back in this mix and you get more of that 60-40, 50-50 split, I actually like the Detroit side. So this is a game that I think you wait for a little bit more news until you have it. But my initial instinct right now is to take the 8 points in Detroit because Denver is not exactly a world-beating offense, no matter what. And it feels like Detroit, once again, they just got rewarded for their competitiveness. Yeah. Yes, a very emotional game, but I think that they are better than some of the 2 and 3 win teams that are out there, Detroit, at least the way they've played this year in terms of effort level. So I'll take the 8 points with Detroit right now. That's my instinct, Dan. The 42, my instinct says over. In this one too, because the Denver defense can be very inconsistent at times. But what do you think about this line so far?
I don't love it, but if I had to go one way, it would be the Lions. Because that just betting on the Broncos to beat a team by more than a touchdown right now just seems foolhardy. They can, of course, and they have, but just to have confidence in them being able to do that, I don't have it. And the Lions, you're right, Joe. The biggest thing with the Lions is they will play hard, and we make fun of Dan Campbell, but that team plays hard to the very end. 4 quarters, baby. All the time. So the total, I don't want to get near. I assume the Broncos are going to win this game, but I think the Lions are going to play. And, Teddy looks banged up, just generally battling through. They haven't found a way to utilize any of their wide receivers, unfortunately, as good as, all those guys are. So strikes me as a game that the Broncos probably win by somewhere between 3 and 7. So I'd probably take the Lions, but not a game I'm running to take. What about the Chargers, Joe, at home here against the Giants? The consensus 10.5. There's 10s out there, but there's a lot of 10.5. The total is 45.5. I guess the thought is we're going to get Jake Fromm. I guess because Daniel Jones is all but ruled out right now. We've got Mike Lennon with the concussion. But you have Keenan Allen out, most likely not. He's on the COVID list. He did test positive, so I don't know if he's vaccinated or if we've heard anything on that. But I guess he's not technically ruled out yet for this weekend. But I assume that he's probably going to be out. It's 10.5. You feel like they could maybe score no points offensively, Joe, and still find a way to win this game just based on their defense. But what do you think here at 10.5?
I don't usually like these huge numbers, typically speaking, but what's going on with the Giants offense, and it's not even just the quarterback play is enough right now, right?
Yeah.
Just to downgrade potentially to Jake Fromm or Mike Lennon or any of those guys. And then you throw in that Shepard's been hurt and Tony's been hurt and nobody's practicing together. Nobody's working together. And Galladay's been a complete bust. And Saquon Barkley is, just uninspiring at this point in this offense. I think the 10.5. Actually, I love to lock in the 10 wherever I could before you get to the hook. That's what I would like to do.
There are a couple spots out there where it's 10.
Yeah, take the 10 where you could get the 10.
Okay.
And take the Chargers because, like I said, it's just there's so many issues here. And when you don't have your personnel working together on the field, and then you have lesser personnel leading it at quarterback, that is a really tough sell to go on the road, cross country, and play a team like the Chargers, who has a really good pass rush, right? Bosa's going to be on top of whoever's playing quarterback, most likely.
Right.
And then on top of which, they're a very opportunistic secondary. They're hit and miss, which is why the Chargers are 7-5 and don't have 8 or 9 wins, is because sometimes they play a little fast and loose on the defensive side of the football. And because of that, what I believe is that you're going to probably, in this game where you don't have a great offense, the fast and loose is going to work because the Giants are going to make a mistake. So I think I'd lock in the 10 where I could, get rid of the hook, and take the Chargers. Ignore the over-under because you have no idea what you're going to get out of the Giants. Well, that's the thing. People would be tempted. It's it's going to be a blowout. Let's take the Chargers.
Right.
But for this to happen, you have to get the New York Giants to do their part. I have concerns if the Giants can do their part in this game, depending on who's playing quarterback. Therefore, go to the 10. Stay away from the over-under.
I agree. The 10 right now is at BetMGM. It's at Fox Bet. Our books, Joe, are at 10.5. I'd go with the Chargers, but it's, such a bizarre game here with everything that's going on. People who listen to this podcast regularly know which way I'm going to go in this game. Joe, this is the 49ers visiting the Bengals. Both teams off tough losses here. The 49ers kept it close. The Bengals just got, their butts kicked in this game by the Chargers. 49ers here are getting a point in Cincinnati, Joe, and the total is 47.5. What do you think about this one?
This is the fascinating game of the week, right? This screams run away. But if you want to take a stand here, the only thing that even gives me pause here with the Bengals is that pinky of Joe Burrow. Because it sounds like, oh, it's a pinky. It is a big deal. Because you could see the pain that he had on the sidelines trying to throw the football and work through it. And that's that finger that when you throw the football, it really gives you that control at the very end there that helps with that spiral. So that is something that is concerning to me. Now, is it concerning enough to go the San Francisco side? For me, no. Because I'm not a big fan of the 49ers this year. I think they've fallen into everything breaking right. Deebo Samuel's health has a lot to do with this game. If Deebo's back in this game, that makes me stay away from it. But if he's out of this game, I would, favor the Cincinnati side. It's very tricky. I think you're looking at the lines too. You're getting the minus 110 on the one, and you're getting minus 15 for the Bengals to win outright. So you might as well just take the point if you think. Like, there's no incentive to just take the Bengals to win on the money line. It doesn't exist. So you might as well just go ahead and take the one and go ahead and take Cincinnati at home and take, because they did show up eventually in that game against the Chargers.
They did.
And then there were a couple moments like Jamar Chase didn't come down up with that ball. If he does,
right.
Maybe
it's a very different game.
It's a very right. So there were moments there where they did play catch up, but they fell short. And this is what a young team has, where they go through these growing pains, where they're really, they have really good talent. They, start beating the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? But then they don't understand that you have to prepare and let that go for the next week. And it doesn't matter. That team is going to come in. You're building this competitive. They're going to whoop your ass. So I think that San Francisco is a perfect example of, okay, now you got to be ready. You're going to let two West Coast teams here back to back whoop you at home. I don't think so. So I like the Cincinnati side of this one too. How do you feel about this one? Because this one's very close.
I basically have spent 4 weeks in a row fading the Bengals, and it mostly has not worked out. It did this past week. I think the Bengals are a very, very overrated team. I think the 49ers are a much better team. Just putting aside everything, and again, I look at DVOA. I think it's just like a very easy sort of just general way to look at the teams. The 49ers total DVOA 7th. The Bengals are 18th. Like, I think that's just a very, very simple way to look at the fact that the 49ers are a much better team. Now, the 49ers, Joe, you noted, don't know if we're going to get Deebo back. When you get a 1 to 2 week injury, Joe, I always take the over. So I assume he's going to be out this week. You also have Elijah Mitchell. My guess is he's not going to play this week because he got the big hit, came back in the game, and then subsequently the next day has concussion symptoms. That's bad. They also don't have Jeff Wilson. That's bad because he had the knee flare-up. Trey Sermon's on IR, so you might have JaMychal Hasty and Kyle Juszczyk, and that's it in the run game. That really hurts. But this is a better team. You got the pinky, Joe, which you met. If word is bad, what I heard about Burrow, Joe, with the pinky is he's optimistic he can play through it. That's not what you want to hear. You want to hear, this is nothing. I'm totally fine. Let's go. So the fact that he does have that, I think if word leaks that it's bad, that's bad. So this is a West Coast team, again, as you mentioned, Joe, coming east. But the Chargers didn't seem to have any problem. And also, this is a 425 game, which I think makes it a lot easier for their internal clocks, right? To sort of do that. So I'm on the 49ers here. My guess is I will be taking them on Thursday on our Best Bets show because I am at this point fading the Bengals pretty hard. But that is just how Dan Harris does it this year, and it has not always worked out.
You and I would have agreed last week on fading the Bengals.
You were on the Chargers as well.
I was very much on the Chargers because whenever you have that big emotional victory for an in-division opponent, especially the Steelers, that have been a team that's been whooping on you, and that was the third time in a row that they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they beat them at halftime. That game was over. It was 30-3 at half.
I was on the Steelers, by the way, on that game too because I fade the Bengals, but yeah, that's a letdown spot, right?
You have to know that there's going to be that we're going to come out flat at least.
Yeah.
And the Chargers, are not going to come out flat. The Chargers are a very well coached team, and Staley's done a really good job there. I really like him as a football coach. I think that's a team that everyone always makes fun of. The Chargers are going to charge and all that stuff. I think you could throw that away. I don't think that's what Brandon Staley's about, and the preparation there I think is very good. And they're still in a lot of ways a young team that's got to learn how to win. And last week, I think, was a really good, fork in the road for them in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is a good one coming up, Joe. The Bills are visiting the Bucs. The Bucs are laying a field goal, 52.5 with the total here, Joe. Look, the Bills right now they're a little bit of crossroads here, Joe. They're 7-5. Like, they are 7-5 at this point. That's miraculous to think about. Their offense has really not been able to get going. I put aside the wind game, and they're going to be stinging after that one. Like, their offense has not been able to get it done. They obviously lost Tre'Davious White for the season. That's a huge loss to their defense. The Bucs 9-3 continue to roll. No Antonio Brown, but it doesn't really matter. They can get it done any which way. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, it doesn't matter because Chris Godwin had 15 catches. And
right, exactly.
Rob Gronkowski had a dozen catches. So what does it matter?
Right.
Hopefully there won't be hurricane winds in Tampa. Like, hopefully they can get rid of any kind of wind here back-to-back weeks here for them. But the White injury is huge because that secondary was really the strength of the defense. And we take away your number one corner, everybody moves up a slot. And number one corners are number one corners. And the reason... And not every team has a number one corner. And again, we talk so much on the fantasy side of things about offense. And I think that filters into so much of our wagering. We don't talk enough about defense on both sides, whether it be betting, whether it be fantasy. We don't talk about what that impact is. And right now, that injury is going to absolutely show up in this game against Tom Brady, because when you have an injury to the secondary like that, when you have a situation where you have a quarterback that's that good in terms of finding the open guy, this could be a really long day here. And Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are great players and all of them. I'm not taking anything away from those dudes. I love them. But this is tough here because Buffalo kind of suffers from the same problem that the Chiefs are suffering from, which is when you become one-dimensional, you become predictable. And when you become predictable, you become beatable in the NFL. And that's what's happened to both of these teams. Offensively, they become predictable. Now, the Chiefs starting to work in Clyde Edwards-Helaire more, I think, is a good thing. But there is no CEH here for the Buffalo Bills. It ain't Matt Breida, okay? And it's not Devin Singletary or Zach Moss. So it's really Josh Allen kind of feeling the load here. And I worry that that's a lot to put on him, because when Josh Allen takes on too much, Josh Allen overplays and tries to get out of 3 tackles and then chuck the ball. And that's old, bad Josh Allen. Those are the old, bad habits. And if those habits come out against Tampa, you're going to see issues here. And you're going to see, Tampa can also get to the quarterback a little bit too. I don't know, man. For this one, I feel pretty confident in Tampa at this 3. And it's sad because I love Josh Allen. I love this Bills team. I was picking them to win the East this year. But this just feels like a 7-6 situation when they are on that plane Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. I think you have to go with the Bucs right now at the field goal. And again, it has nothing to do with last night. Like, they could have very easily won that game, obviously, and it was a crazy game. Dawson Knox dropped a bunch of passes and stuff like that, but it was just, I throw it out entirely.
It's the mental state of last night's game.
Yeah.
That you lost at home to the Patriots, and that was the one you didn't want to lose because it was your home game. If you split, it's fine, but you want to win the one at home because that's the one that's a lock, and you feel better going into Tampa. Because then what happens is these losses start to mount, and you start winning, losing, and you start to have, there's no confidence build.
Yeah.
That's the problem. If you go look in this game log for the Buffalo Bills, it's up and down, and that's not a good situation for them from a confidence standpoint.
Yeah, to me, they're just playing poorly routinely, right? Like, that's the bottom line. They haven't played well in a while offensively as well. And you mentioned it, they have a little bit of the Chiefs syndrome where, opposing defenses started taking away the explosive plays. They can't run it. They don't like to go short, that much. And Allen holds the ball a little too long. So, yeah, they are struggling right now. And it's just really difficult to see them on a short week going into Tampa and beating that team. So if you're getting 3, like if you're just laying 3, I agree with you, Joe. I think you got to go with the Bucs here. I think the Bills are still overrated in the market right now. Mm-hmm. Bears are visiting the Packers on Sunday Night Football, 12.5 right now, at 11.5 for me at DraftKings. It's rare, Joe, I joke about this, where you see a giant spread and a total of 44. Like, it's not often. Don't know who's going to be quarterback right now. It's pain tolerance issue for Justin Fields at this point. Mm-hmm. Don't know if Allen Robinson's going to be back. Don't know if it matters. And you've got, again, the Packers coming off the bye here. Aaron Jones is back. Devontae Adams is there. Aaron Rodgers is there. And hopefully his toe feels a little better here. 12.5 is a very big number, Joe, especially with the total that low. But what do you think about it?
Every fiber of my being, after Aaron Rodgers keeps talking about how I own you, I own the Bears. I want to take the Bears so bad in the 12.5, but I can't do it. I just can't do it. Like, the fact is he does owe them. He owns them until further notice, and This is not the game because of the health, as you just pointed out, the situation at quarterback, everything going on there. And the defense for the Bears is respectable, but the problem is that the offense just continues to put them on the field too much and in bad situations. So it's a bad combination of things, and you can't do that with Aaron Rodgers, and you certainly can't do that on the road, if you're the Bears. So I hate saying 12.5 is safe, but I feel like 12.5 is actually pretty safe here in this one. So I would go with the 12.5. I would stay away from the 44, though. If anything, the over for the garbage time stuff. Like 44 is too low in this game, too, because I think Green Bay could put up 30 by themselves, and then you're not asking a lot of the Bears at all. So that's something to keep in mind. So 44 over 12.5. If you can get it at 12 somewhere, take it, but without the hook.
It's 11.5 for me at DraftKings. But
go.
I probably, that's weird, sort of the outlier in the market, which is good, by the way. I like it when books aren't just always in unison here. But I think there's no way I could take the Bears. I'm not touching the total. There's no way you could take the Bears right now. With the Packers at home at Lambeau on Sunday Night Football, in a nationally televised game, like you can just see them sort of, crushing them. So if I go one way or the other, I probably will go with the Packers. It's not a game I hate the big spreads like that. I just automatically sort of have an aversion to, but whatever. Last game, Monday Night Football, good one. Rams visiting the Cardinals. Spread is 3, totals 51.5.
This is a big one here. This is a playoff game. This is huge because Arizona having Kyler Murray back healthy last week, or healthy enough to play at least last week. We don't know how healthy he really is, but he was on the field and he had 4 touchdowns, so that's good enough for me. I don't know if it's good enough for you. So I'm going to take the Arizona side of this game because what I keep seeing from the Rams is they continue to be their own worst enemy. And it's kind of frustrating. I watched that game against the Packers a few weeks ago where Sean McVay is calling a 4th down going for it in their own 30 on the road in the first quarter. And I'm thinking to myself, who do you think you are? And this is why really good teams in the NFL sometimes lose, because their head coach is too smart for their own good sometimes and makes stupid decisions and puts them behind. Sean McVay can have all the confidence in the world he wants against, in his offense, against whoever opponent, all that nonsense. But there's just things you do and things you don't do. And my concern is in this game on the road, Sean McVay is going to make a stupid decision at some point in time, and it's going to put them in a bad position, and the Cardinals are going to take advantage of it. And I think it's time we start to put some respect on the Cardinals' defense, too. This team has played very well defensively all year. Despite every week everybody waiting for the other shoe to drop, it just hasn't. And they've lost personnel year over year. I mean, Simmons has played terrific. They've had a really good year out of their linebacker core. The Rams, I think, are a better team on paper, but it just feels like for whatever reason, them putting it together, and I don't care what happened this week against Jacksonville. I don't care. You should stomp a mud hole in Jacksonville. You're a significantly better roster than them. That means absolutely nothing to me coming into this game, and I actually like Arizona here to win this game. So I will still take the 3 with Arizona because I think they can win by that much. But Dan, I'm curious, would you take the Rams side and the points in this game?
I don't think so. I think you're right. I think I'm on the same side as you. This is one where, sometimes, Joe, I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a reaction to games early when I look at them right here as we do on Monday. And then as I dig into it as the week goes on, sometimes I change sides. I did that with Pittsburgh and Baltimore. When I first looked at the line, it was 4.5. I said, feels like the Ravens are going to be able to win this game pretty handily. But as I dug into it, by the end of the game, by the end of the week, I was on the Steelers, and I had them in our app, by the way, our BettingPros app, where we can log our picks. This one, though, it does feel like the Cardinals, and it just feels like with a healthy Kyler Murray, with DeAndre Hopkins getting healthier, James Conner is playing great. The Rams look a little lost right now, and I think they'll probably try to run the ball. Sort of, you heard McVay talking about the fact that they liked the running style more, what they did with Michelle, which was just sort of a downhill, runner, and maybe Henderson gets back, so maybe they try to do that more. But obviously the loss of Robert Woods, I think, is, bigger. Odell Beckham Jr. he's banged up. He caught the touchdown pass, obviously, but he's banged up. Van Jefferson is fine. Cooper Kupp's amazing. But I just don't know if they have the firepower right now to stick with the Cardinals offensively, which with Murray fully healthy, and I think they played this correctly, thankfully, in giving him so much time off after that ankle sprain, right? Because, you heard him a game day decision 2 weeks in a row before the bye, and I was like, please don't play him. Please just let him rest, rely on Colt McCoy to win most of the games and be fine, and then get him the bye and then get him healthy. And man, you saw what he looked like. When he gets out of the pocket, he's just impossible to bring down right now. This is also it for the division. I mean, if they win this game, the division's over. Like, I mean, they'll still have to play because, again, the one thing I like, Joe, about these schedule changes, like, you got the one team getting the bye. Like, that's going to mean the Packers and the Cardinals got to go full out, right, for the rest of the year. But this is it for the division. The Cardinals will lock up the division with the win, and I think they do right now. So I agree with you, Joe. I think if it's field goal, and again, it's under a field goal at a couple of places. Fox bet, points bet, like it's 2.5. That I really like. But at 3, I think I like it as well. I think I'm with you, Joe. Well done. All right, Joe, what's the that was our last game. What's the schedule here for the college football podcast? Just remind the listeners what we're doing.
Well, first of all, it's been a glorious college football year for Scott Bachman. Let's just put that out there. But then some really fun games last week. Alabama beating Georgia was a fun game, and beating them handily too. My goodness, that Georgia defense certainly ran up against an offensive line wall who heard all week about how they were going to be overmatched. Well, they weren't. And Bryce Young had more time in the pocket and played the game of his career so far. So it was a great game for him.
Yep.
A couple weeks ago, we had that Michigan game. Some great stuff's been going on in college football. So this week, we're going to take a week off, take a deep breath, and then we're every week here to close the year, we're going to have a bowl preview. So we have, I think, 15 games the first week, or 13 games, and then 15. I forget which number is which. So the next couple weeks, we're going to be going week at a time with the bowl games. And then when we get to the college football playoffs, we'll do a special to close everything out on the national championship game. So we'll do not only picking the game, we'll probably talk a little bit about all the props inside the game and just have some fun and kind of close out the year, or maybe look a little ahead too, because there's already some massive coaching changes that have gone on in the college football world. But it's been a fun season. If you missed it, I don't know. I'm questioning your choices in life. Go check it out, man. Get into college football. It's fun.
There's a saying when you have kids, Joe, which is the days are long, but the years are short, right?
Yes.
Meaning that, like, when you're going through it every day, like, feels forever, but then you wake up and, like, the kids are, like, 5 years older, right? I feel that way a little bit with this football season, with this college football season, where I felt like every week it was sort of like, all the work that we put in and everything on the betting side, especially just sort of, grinding it out each week, going through the shows, blah, blah. And then I'm like, oh my God, the season is over. And it feels like it went like that. You guys did a great job. I certainly enjoyed Bogman way more than you, but still, Bogman was fantastic, obviously, in the college football side. We're going to keep going here with the NFL show, of course, until the end of the season. So for everybody listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to the college football podcast as well. Stick with us here. It's going to be good. We'll be back on Thursday with our best bets. I will talk to you.